February 19, 1945. Dawn breaks over the black volcanic sands of Iwo Jima. The horizon trembles under the thunder of naval bombardments, smoke curling into a gray sky. Waves crash violently against the shore, carrying men and machines toward an island that seems to resist every advance. U.S. Marines, drenched in salt water and mud, scramble forward. Their boots sink into the scorching sand, while artillery shells strike with ear-splitting force. The smell of gunpowder and blood mixes with the acrid scent of smoke. Every step is met with Japanese fire from hidden bunkers, caves, and fortified positions carved into the volcanic rock. Above them, fighter planes roar, spraying the beach with deadly precision. Behind them, the endless supply of amphibious tanks struggles to advance, often destroyed before reaching the enemy lines. Yet, despite staggering casualties, already more than 1,000, these Marines press on. They are moving toward Mount Suribachi, unaware that their relentless advance will shock the Japanese high command and mark a turning point in the Pacific War. To understand why these men faced such unimaginable odds, we must first look at the war that brought them here. By late 1944, the Pacific War had reached a critical juncture. The United States, having absorbed the shock of Pearl Harbor and weathered years of attritional island hopping, had turned the tide. U.S. forces were steadily closing in on Japan, capturing strategic islands one by one: Saipan, Guam, and Peleliu, each hard-won through ferocious combat. Each victory came at a price, but they provided vital airfields and logistical hubs for the ultimate assault on the Japanese home islands. Iwo Jima, a tiny volcanic speck just 750 miles south of Tokyo, became the next critical objective. Its 2 airfields and proximity to the Japanese mainland made it an ideal base for fighter escorts, B-29 bombers, and reconnaissance missions. To the U.S. Navy and Marine Corps, the island was small, but its strategic value was immense, a stepping stone that could shorten the war. For the Japanese High Command, Iwo Jima was more than just another island to defend. The Imperial General Headquarters, under General Hideki Tojo and his successors, had fully embraced a defensive doctrine of attrition. By 1945, Japan no longer aimed to win the Pacific outright. Instead, they sought to inflict maximum casualties to force the Allies into costly negotiations. Every island, every bunker, and every man became part of a larger strategy to make the price of invasion unbearably high. The Japanese 109th Division, commanded by Lieutenant General Tadamichi Kuribayashi, was tasked with defending Iwo Jima. Kuribayashi was a calculated and unconventional strategist. Unlike many of his peers, he rejected the traditional practice of massed banzai charges against superior forces. Instead, he implemented a defense in-depth strategy, an intricate network of caves, tunnels, and fortified positions designed to neutralize the U.S. numerical advantage. His forces, numbering roughly 21,000, would not seek to stop the Marines at the beach. They would allow them to land, then grind them down through relentless, close-range fire and ambushes. The Americans, aware of Japanese resilience from battles at Peleliu and Saipan, approached Iwo Jima with meticulous preparation. Months of planning, aerial reconnaissance, and naval bombardments preceded the landing. The 3rd, 4th, and 5th Marine Divisions were designated for the assault, supported by the Navy's vast armada, battleships, cruisers, destroyers, and escort carriers prepared to lay down unprecedented firepower. Engineers rehearsed beach landings and flamethrower tactics. Yet, even with overwhelming material advantage, military planners knew that the Japanese were formidable, determined, and cunning. The geography of Iwo Jima itself amplified the challenge. The island is roughly 8 square miles, dominated by Mount Suribachi at the southern tip, its slopes rising sharply from the shoreline. Black volcanic sand covered the beaches, making movement treacherous, while lava rock and jagged ridges provided natural defensive positions for entrenched troops. Above ground, the island appeared deceptively quiet. Below it, however, was a labyrinth of tunnels, bunkers, and artillery emplacements capable of delivering sudden, devastating fire on anyone who dared advance. Morale on both sides reflected the stakes. The Marines, hardened by Guadalcanal, Tarawa, and Saipan, knew they faced death on a scale few could imagine. They carried not just rifles and flamethrowers, but an understanding that survival depended on courage, cohesion, and sheer willpower. The Japanese, though often outgunned, relied on meticulous preparation and a cultural ethos that valued honor, sacrifice, and unwavering loyalty to the emperor. By the eve of the invasion, February 18, 1945, the stage was set. The island was a fortress, the defenders resolute, and the attackers determined. Ships lined the horizon, silhouetted against a blood-red dawn. Marines slept fitfully on their transports, weapons at hand, knowing that the next morning would demand every ounce of skill and bravery they possessed. The air was tense, heavy with anticipation, as if the island itself waited to judge the worth of those who dared step upon its shores. In the hours that followed, the world would witness a battle of extremes. Precision and improvisation, courage and suffering, tenacity and despair. The story of Iwo Jima was about to unfold, beginning with the first hellish moments on the Black Sands, moments that would challenge the very limits of human endurance. From this crucible of fire and determination, multiple perspectives, human, tactical, technological, and moral, would emerge, revealing the true cost of the battle. The Marines who landed on Iwo Jima faced a reality few could comprehend. February 19, 1945, began with chaos. Bullets tearing through the air, shells exploding along the Black Sands, and fellow soldiers falling beside them. The human cost was immediate. Within hours, over 1,000 men were killed or wounded. Yet, despite the carnage, small groups pressed forward, moving from crater to crater, bunker to bunker, each step a testament to their training, courage, and sheer will to survive. Private First Class Harold Schultz, though a typical Marine in experience and rank, exemplified this resolve. Charging a machine gun nest, he knew that hesitation meant death. Others, like stretcher-bearers and medics, moved deliberately into the same fire to save lives, disregarding their own safety. Fear was present, palpable, yet it did not paralyze them. It sharpened their instincts. Each man understood that progress, no matter how slow, was critical. Every yard gained was a blow against the island's formidable defense and a step toward eventual victory. Iwo Jima was a tactical nightmare. The Japanese had prepared for every conceivable assault, constructing an interlocking network of pillboxes, tunnels, and artillery positions. Traditional amphibious landing strategies were ineffective against defenders who refused to mass their forces at the beach. Instead, the Japanese allowed the Marines to land, then subjected them to withering fire from hidden positions. Marines quickly adapted. Flamethrowers became essential tools, along with demolition charges to neutralize bunkers. Coordinated artillery and naval gunfire had to be precise. Miscalculations meant friendly fire or wasted ordnance. Tank support was limited by the volcanic sand, which could immobilize vehicles, leaving infantry exposed. Commanders improvised constantly, shifting units to exploit small breaches and employing smoke screens to obscure movement. The battle became a grind, measured in yards, each tactical decision carrying immense weight. The technological dimension of Iwo Jima revealed both the power and limitations of modern warfare. U.S. naval bombardment alone involved hundreds of ships and thousands of tons of explosives, yet its effect on well-fortified Japanese positions was often minimal. Flamethrowers, tanks, and demolition charges proved decisive in overcoming bunkers, but each deployment carried risk. Aircraft provided close air support, strafing Japanese positions and suppressing artillery, but the island's small size and rugged terrain limited their effectiveness. Radios allowed for coordination between ground units and naval gunfire, but signal interference and the chaos of combat often disrupted communication. Technology alone could not win the battle. It had to be combined with skill, courage, and improvisation. The human, tactical, and technological angles illustrate different layers of the battle, yet none fully explain the resilience of the Marines or the shock it inflicted on the Japanese high command. As the first waves pushed inland, leadership decisions, enemy strategy, and moral factors would begin to shape the course of the conflict, revealing the broader complexities of Iwo Jima. Leadership under fire defined the course of Iwo Jima. On the U.S. side, commanders like Major General Harry Schmidt of the V Amphibious Corps orchestrated one of the most complex amphibious assaults in history. Decisions were made in real time, often with incomplete intelligence and under constant threat of Japanese counterattacks. Battalion and company commanders improvised on the fly, sending squads to exploit weak points, coordinating with tanks and flamethrowers, and balancing the relentless push forward with the preservation of men wherever possible. Across the island, Japanese commanders faced their own moral and strategic dilemmas. Lieutenant General Tadamichi Kuribayashi, understanding the inevitability of U.S. landings, rejected massed banzai charges and concentrated defenses at the shoreline. Instead, he focused on defense in depth, utilizing every cave, tunnel, and fortification. His leadership emphasized patience, calculated risk, and the psychological toll of attrition. Kuribayashi's orders demanded total commitment, and his men understood that survival was secondary to the strategic goal: inflict maximum casualties, delay the enemy, and honor the emperor. The Japanese defensive strategy at Iwo Jima was unprecedented in its meticulous design. Soldiers were trained to fight to the last man, exploiting terrain and fortifications to their maximum effect. Unlike other Pacific battles, where defenders often confronted invading forces immediately on the beach, Iwo Jima's defenders allowed the Marines to land before unleashing concentrated fire from concealed positions. Mortars, machine guns, and artillery created overlapping kill zones that turned each advance into a deadly ordeal. The High Command's shock was partly rooted in the Marines' refusal to break under this punishment. Japanese officers expected the initial landings to decimate American forces, yet the relentless forward movement defied conventional expectations. The combination of entrenched defenders, calculated ambushes, and the Marines' persistence created a tactical tension that would define the battle's psychological and physical landscape. Iwo Jima tested human endurance in extreme ways. Marines confronted death on a scale few could imagine, yet they advanced relentlessly. Fear, pain, and exhaustion were constant companions, yet courage manifested in countless small actions. A soldier dragging a wounded comrade through enemy fire, a squad leader leading a flanking maneuver under machine gun fire, medics tending the wounded in open terrain. These moments, though brief, reflected the moral fortitude necessary to maintain cohesion and continue the assault. For the Japanese defenders, the psychological stakes were equally intense. Soldiers knew that surrender was dishonorable and that death was likely inevitable. Their mindset, shaped by duty, honor, and indoctrination, allowed them to hold positions for weeks under bombardment, inflicting massive casualties while expecting none to survive. The clash of these mental landscapes, the Marines' survival-driven courage against the Japanese commitment to sacrifice, created a uniquely harrowing environment, one that stunned observers on both sides and left lasting impressions in military history. By examining these angles, the human, tactical, technological, leadership, enemy, and psychological, we begin to understand the complexity and scale of Iwo Jima. Each perspective shows the battle not just as a confrontation of forces, but as a collision of wills, ingenuity, and resilience. From these converging layers of strategy, courage, and determination, the battle escalated toward its defining moments. The Marines' bloody struggle for every yard, and the Japanese High Command's growing disbelief at their unyielding advance, set the stage for the climactic assault on Mount Suribachi. February 19, 1945. The morning fog lifts to reveal a scene of unrelenting chaos. The first wave of U.S. Marines hits the black volcanic sands of Iwo Jima, their landing craft groaning under the pounding surf. Explosions erupt in synchronized fury as naval guns unleash one of the most concentrated bombardments of the Pacific War. Yet, the Japanese defenses, meticulously constructed and concealed, survive much of the onslaught. The beach quickly becomes a crucible of fire. Machine guns tear through ranks. Mortars strike with devastating precision. Artillery shells rattle the ground. For every yard gained, Marines pay in blood. By midday, casualties exceed 1,200 men killed, wounded, or missing in the first hours of combat. The screams, the smoke, the acrid stench of gunpowder, and the volcanic dust create an environment that tests every instinct. Amid the carnage, leadership matters most. Company commanders shout over the din, directing squads toward weak points in the Japanese defenses. Flamethrower teams crawl forward under fire, neutralizing bunkers one by one. Tanks, struggling in the shifting volcanic sands, attempt to suppress enemy fire, only to be knocked out by hidden anti-tank positions. Every decision is immediate and consequential. Yet, even as casualties mount, Marines push inland. Small groups navigate jagged lava rocks and cratered terrain, using shell holes as cover, advancing incrementally. The human will to survive intertwines with duty. Fear is present but tempered by training and camaraderie. Each forward movement, each captured bunker, each fallen enemy position becomes a testament to resilience. On the Japanese side, Lieutenant General Kuribayashi observes from his command posts. The High Command anticipated fierce resistance, but the tenacity of the Marines exceeds expectations. The initial U.S. landing should have faltered under fire, yet wave after wave presses onward, slowly eroding the defensive lines. Kuribayashi recalibrates his orders, emphasizing patience, deception, and concentrated counterfire from hidden positions. Every decision is designed to maximize U.S. casualties while conserving his forces for the prolonged defense of Mount Suribachi. By the evening, the first footholds inland are tenuously established. Marines dig in amid craters and destroyed equipment, preparing for another relentless day. Naval gunfire continues to pound Japanese positions, yet the defenders remain formidable, emerging from tunnels to strike with deadly accuracy. The interplay of human courage, tactical ingenuity, and technological firepower dominates every moment. The first 3 days set the pattern for the battle. Progress measured in yards, losses measured in hundreds, and psychological strain reaching its apex. Small units face unimaginable choices: advance or be cut down, rescue comrades or risk their own lives, follow orders or improvise amid chaos. Each decision echoes the overarching strategy: to survive long enough to reach the next objective, to chip away at the island's defenses, and to honor the sacrifices of those who fell before. Even in these early hours, the Marines' perseverance begins to shake the Japanese High Command. Reports reach Kuribayashi that American forces continue to advance despite staggering losses. The expectation that initial assaults would falter has been defied. Every bunker destroyed, every position taken, every yard gained is both a tactical and psychological victory. By the end of the first week, the Marines have secured small sectors of the beachhead, but the interior remains a labyrinth of enemy positions, tunnels, and fortified ridges. The fighting has evolved into brutal close-quarters combat, each encounter a microcosm of the larger battle. Flamethrowers, demolition charges, and coordinated artillery remain essential, yet victory depends equally on courage, ingenuity, and sheer determination. From this relentless, bloody advance emerges the focus of the entire campaign: Mount Suribachi. The Japanese High Command, already shocked by the Marines' ability to endure staggering casualties, now faces the prospect of losing the island's symbolic and strategic heart. Mount Suribachi looms over the southern tip of Iwo Jima, its black slopes scarred by artillery and fire. By February 23, 1945, the Marines have clawed their way across the island, inch by inch, through a hell's cape of ash, lava rock, and tunnels bristling with Japanese defenders. The air is thick with smoke and dust, the cries of the wounded echoing from craters, as the island's strategic and symbolic center comes into view. The assault on Suribachi is methodical. The 28th Marines, part of the 5th Marine Division, advance under heavy fire. Flamethrowers and demolition charges clear bunkers, while tanks provide cover when terrain allows. Japanese artillery and machine guns continue to inflict casualties, yet each forward step reveals the determination of the Marines. Every fallen comrade strengthens the resolve of those who remain, a testament to human endurance under unimaginable stress. From the Japanese perspective, the High Command watches in disbelief. Kuribayashi's carefully orchestrated defense, designed to stall and bleed the enemy, now faces an unrelenting force that refuses to break. Initial plans predicted that attrition would slow the Americans and demoralize them, But the Marines' persistence defies these calculations. The meticulous tunnels and bunkers, which had allowed defenders to strike with deadly precision, cannot halt the psychological momentum of an enemy pressing ever closer to Suribachi's summit. By mid-morning, the first units reached the slopes of the mountain. Climbing through jagged rocks and surviving intermittent artillery, they engage in close-quarters combat. The Japanese, deeply entrenched, fight with a discipline and ferocity that exacts a heavy toll. Yet the Marines, trained for relentless assault, continue to advance, driven by orders, survival instinct, and a growing awareness that taking Suribachi will mark a decisive moment in the battle. It is here, on February 23rd, that a small group of Marines accomplishes an act that will resonate far beyond Iwo Jima. They raise the American flag atop Suribachi, signaling not just a tactical gain, but a symbolic assertion of resolve. The iconic image, captured by Joe Rosenthal, crystallizes the relentless determination that has carried the Marines through days of carnage. Behind the photograph lies a story of coordination, bravery, and human endurance. Men climbing under fire, hauling a heavy flagpole, and signaling to comrades that even in the face of near-impossible odds, they advance. The flag raising also delivers a psychological blow to the Japanese defenders. It represents the Marines' unbroken momentum and foreshadows the eventual collapse of organized resistance on the southern tip of the island. Reports to Kuribayashi detail the slow, inexorable push toward the summit. The command's initial shock turns to grim calculation: how to prolong resistance and inflict maximum casualties in the island's remaining interior. Following Suribachi's capture, the battle does not cease. The northern half of Iwo Jima remains fiercely defended. Marines continue to navigate a network of tunnels and ridges, engaging in brutal firefights. Casualties mount daily. Progress is measured in yards rather than miles. Yet the momentum has shifted. The symbolic victory atop Suribachi inspires the Marines to continue pressing, while the Japanese high command begins to confront the reality that their carefully prepared defenses may not prevent ultimate defeat. The final days of the battle are a relentless test of strategy, leadership, and endurance. Small units face repeated assaults, engineers clear mines and obstacles, and medics perform heroic feats under fire. Despite over 6,000 U.S. casualties and heavy losses among the Japanese, the Marines steadily advance toward the island's northern airfields. Every bunker taken, every ridge secured, signals the culmination of careful planning, improvisation, and sheer human determination. By the end of March, the island is secured, but at a staggering cost. The Japanese garrison has been almost entirely destroyed. The Marines have suffered over 6,800 killed and 19,000 wounded. The High Command's expectations of halting the invasion at the beaches have been completely shattered. Iwo Jima is not just a tactical victory. It is a demonstration of human resilience, military coordination, and the overwhelming capacity of determination to overcome formidable defenses. With Suribachi captured and the island firmly in U.S. hands, the aftermath begins, revealing not only the physical destruction but also the enduring lessons of courage, strategy, and sacrifice. The guns fell silent, but the cost of victory was etched into the black sands of Iwo Jima. Over 6,800 U.S. Marines had been killed, and nearly 19,000 wounded, numbers staggering even in a war defined by mass casualties. The Japanese defenders, nearly 21,000 strong at the start of the battle, had been almost entirely annihilated. Only a few hundred were captured alive, many of them severely wounded. The island's surface was scarred with craters, destroyed bunkers, and twisted metal, a grim testament to the intensity of the fighting. The aftermath was more than a tally of lives lost. The psychological weight on the surviving Marines was immense. Letters written home spoke of exhaustion, grief, and disbelief. Many men reported a numbness that followed the constant barrage of artillery, the sight of comrades falling, and the claustrophobic hell of tunnel combat. Medics, stretcher-bearers, and officers alike carried memories of acts of heroism alongside the relentless carnage. For those who survived, the trauma of Iwo Jima would endure long after the island itself had been secured. On the Japanese side, Kuribayashi's meticulous defense, though ultimately unsuccessful, had inflicted one of the highest casualty rates in the Pacific theater. The Imperial High Command had intended to bleed the Americans, to make each island invasion a costly proposition. In that sense, the defense was partially successful. Yet the strategic calculus had failed. The Americans had captured the island, gained control of its airfields, and advanced their ability to project air power closer to the Japanese mainland. Tactical lessons were immediate and stark. The U.S. military realized the lethal efficiency of entrenched defenders in tunnels and bunkers. Close coordination between infantry, engineers, tanks, flamethrowers, and naval gunfire became essential in neutralizing such positions. The battle demonstrated the importance of combined arms tactics, flexible command structures, and the ability to adapt under fire. Reports emphasized that sheer numerical superiority and firepower, while critical, could not guarantee quick victories against determined, well-prepared defenders. Strategically, Iwo Jima provided critical airfields just 650 miles from Tokyo. B-29 bombers now had closer fighter escort coverage, reducing losses on strategic bombing missions over Japan. Reconnaissance flights could operate with greater efficiency, and the island served as an emergency landing site for damaged aircraft. In military terms, the sacrifice of thousands of men secured a logistical and operational advantage that would hasten the conclusion of the Pacific War. The battle also resonated politically. Newspapers in the United States highlighted the heroism of the Marines and the iconic flag raising on Mount Suribachi. The imagery and stories reinforced public perception of courage and perseverance, even as the human cost became more widely understood. For Japan, the loss was a blow to morale and a signal that even the most fortified islands were vulnerable to relentless, determined assaults. Yet, amid the destruction, individual stories of resilience and humanity endured. Marines carried wounded comrades from the beaches, soldiers improvised solutions under fire, and medics worked tirelessly in makeshift hospitals. On both sides, acts of bravery and ingenuity punctuated the carnage, creating a complex narrative where valor and suffering were intertwined. The aftermath of Iwo Jima was both immediate and enduring. It reshaped tactics, influenced strategy, and left a profound psychological mark on those who survived. But while the island was taken, the full consequences of its capture, both human and strategic, would continue to unfold in the days, weeks, and months ahead. With Iwo Jima secured by the end of March 1945, the immediate tactical phase concluded, but the strategic consequences resonated far beyond the island's scorched volcanic terrain. The capture provided a crucial base for the U.S. Air Force, enabling fighter escorts to accompany B-29 bombers deep into Japan, reducing bomber losses and increasing the effectiveness of strategic air raids. For the Marines, the operation validated combined arms tactics, amphibious assault planning, and coordination between infantry, artillery, armor, and naval gunfire. The human cost remained undeniable. Survivors carried memories of friends lost, the constant presence of death, and the psychological strain of fighting in an environment designed to kill. Letters, diaries, and oral histories recount exhaustion, grief, and the surreal nature of combat on black sand beaches beneath a smoke-choked sky. Medics and stretcher-bearers spoke of a war fought not only against an enemy but against the environment itself. Volcanic ash, rugged terrain, and the relentless heat and humidity. For the Japanese High Command, Iwo Jima underscored both the bravery of its soldiers and the limits of static defense. Kuribayashi's strategy of defense in-depth had inflicted massive casualties and prolonged the battle, yet it ultimately could not prevent the Marines from achieving their objectives. The psychological shock to Japanese leadership came from the realization that even carefully fortified positions could not stop a determined, well-coordinated enemy. Reports emphasized the need to reconsider island defenses and the futility of engaging in attritional strategies against overwhelming American firepower. The lessons learned from Iwo Jima reverberated across the Pacific theater. U.S. military planners applied insights to subsequent operations, including Okinawa, emphasizing the importance of engineering support, flamethrowers, demolition teams, and close coordination between air, sea, and land units. The battle highlighted the effectiveness of meticulous intelligence gathering and pre-invasion reconnaissance, demonstrating that understanding terrain, enemy fortifications, and troop deployment could shape the pace and success of an assault. Beyond strategy and tactics, Iwo Jima left a lasting cultural and emotional imprint. The iconic photograph of Marines raising the American flag atop Suribachi became a symbol of perseverance, courage, and unity under fire. For families and the American public, it crystallized the narrative of sacrifice and valor, even as the scale of loss reminded the nation of war's brutal realities. The image also served as a tangible marker of progress in the Pacific, signaling that even the most fortified positions could be taken through courage, planning, and tenacity. For the Marines, the battle reinforced the human dimensions of warfare. Leadership, training, and morale were decisive factors. Small units, improvisation under fire, and the ability to maintain cohesion amidst chaos proved as important as firepower. Meanwhile, Japanese defenders demonstrated extraordinary resilience, the psychological commitment to duty and honor leaving a profound impression on both Allied forces and historians. The capture of Iwo Jima reshaped operational thinking for the final months of the Pacific War. Air bases established on the island enabled sustained bombing campaigns over Japan, reducing flight times and increasing sortie rates. The psychological impact on Japanese leadership foreshadowed the increasingly desperate measures that would follow, including the mass mobilization of civilian defense forces and the eventual resort to kamikaze tactics on Okinawa and elsewhere. The island had been taken, the enemy defeated, and strategic objectives achieved. Yet the true legacy of Iwo Jima lay not only in maps and military reports, but in the human endurance, tactical innovation, and calculated sacrifice that had defined the battle. From this moment, history would record both the triumph and the cost, setting the stage for reflection on the meaning of courage and the lessons of one of the bloodiest engagements in the Pacific theater. Iwo Jima stands as a testament to the extremes of human endurance and the profound costs of war. On a small volcanic island, tens of thousands faced death daily, yet pressed forward. Marines driven by duty, training, and camaraderie. Japanese defenders bound by honor and resolve. The battle was a collision of wills, each side testing the limits of courage, strategy, and resilience. The capture of Suribachi and the island's subsequent occupation shifted the momentum of the Pacific War, providing a critical airbase and a forward position for the Allies. Yet its significance transcends maps and military reports. Iwo Jima illustrates the intimate, often brutal intersection of strategy and human experience. Each bunker taken, each yard gained, was paid for in blood. Each act of heroism and ingenuity etched into memory, shaping the way we understand courage under fire. It also offers lessons in leadership and innovation. Kuribayashi's defense, though ultimately overcome, demonstrated the power of preparation, tactical foresight, and psychological warfare. For U.S. commanders, the battle reinforced the value of combined arms, coordination, and adaptability under pressure. Strategy alone could not win. It required human will, creativity, and sacrifice. And yet, perhaps the most enduring reflection is on the human cost. Thousands never returned home. Survivors carried scars, seen and unseen, for the rest of their lives. Their perseverance in the face of near-impossible odds, and their respect for those who fell beside them, reminds us that history is not only a record of movements and decisions, but a chronicle of courage, suffering, and resolve. Iwo Jima endures both as a symbol and a caution. It represents the limits of preparation, the weight of human determination, and the staggering price of warfare. And amid the ash and rubble, one truth remains. Even in the most desperate circumstances, the spirit of those who fight and the memory of those who fall leave an indelible mark on history. From the black sands to the summit of Suribachi, the battle speaks not just of victory, but of humanity itself, its resilience, its courage, and its enduring capacity to confront the unimaginable.